Hello, my fellow readers. Today I'm going to be going over my top 20 of 2022. So these are the books I think I liked the best out of the whole year. I did read a lot of great books. As you saw from my year in review, I read over 680 books, which is a lot. I don't remember what I got to. Over 400, I think, are just novel books. Or so. Maybe I'm a little bit shy of that because some of those were light novels. I'm not going to cover manga or light novels in this video. I'm just going to do straight novels, and then a follow-up video will cover my favorite light novels and manga of the year. So going into it, I guess the bottom, they're all at the top. Like, just read any of these. I enjoyed them greatly, but the last one on my list is Ariadne, which is a Greek retelling of Ariadne's story. Now, usually Ariadne is a bit of a side character, but in this she gets featured, and we get to go through her whole life, and it's good. And I think Electra is out this year, and I'll be checking that out, but Ariadne was very good. Next is Homegoings, which, and I'm like, is it goings or going? I'm going to say it wrong. Regardless, it's a big family saga that starts with the family in Africa and then follows. There's like two sisters. I think they were half sisters, and their two lives are completely different. One ends up getting taken into the slave trade and brought to America, and then what that family struggles with in America. The other sister's family is still in Africa, and then like the two stories converge later in life, and it's really good. It's really emotional. That was a good read. I think I finished that back in February or March maybe, but really good. Next is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I've read, I think, all of Gabriel Zevin's work, and this one was really, well, it's still, like, all of them were emotional, but this one was also emotional. But I really liked the friendship story in this. Don't go into it thinking about the two main characters that they kind of blurb about it being a romance story. It's not a romance story, but it is a beautiful friendship story. And go into it with that, and I think you'll be more pleased. But I also loved the video game background of it. It's really good for my nerdy personality. Next is Legends and Lattes, which, like, everybody was talking about this year, and it is a cozy fantasy series where, like, an orc starts a coffee shop and tries to get the other people to learn what coffee is and appreciate coffee, and it was good. And there's a lot of baked goods, which I appreciate because I don't really drink coffee. I'm a tea drinker, but I love baked goods, so there's a lot of that in it. And so it's more like low stakes and more of a comfort read. It was good. I also read, or next on the list I should say, is A River Enchanted, which I feel like I sort of put off reading, but A River Enchanted is by Rebecca Ross, and it's a fantasy story, and I really liked it, and I actually just got book 2 for it, so I'm hoping it goes well. And next is Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which I also got book 2 for that for, and I've already finished it, but Daughter of the Moon Goddess, like, swept me in. Like, the language of it and everything was so beautiful, and it does tell the story of the Daughter of the Moon Goddess who's trying to free her mother, who was accused of a crime and imprisoned, and so she's trying to free her mother. That's a very minimal, like, way to describe it, but it's a very good book. Next, I have sort of a tie, so maybe this should have been a top 21 of 2022, but I really liked Project Hail Mary, which some people don't, but I loved the friendship story of Project Hail Mary. It's an unlikely friendship, and I just found it really sweet. And so it was more like kind of a happy sci-fi for me. Yeah, I just liked that book. And the other one would be Upgrade by Blake Crouch, which I read more towards the end of the year. And that one was kind of a bit darker, but the whole question of whether or not we should do certain things, like upgrading ourselves, like what's the ethical rightness of doing these if you believe that by doing that you could save the planet, but at the same time this upgrade would like kill a bunch of people on the planet. So I don't know. I liked a lot of the questions that was brought up by that book. Next is a new book by Sarah Addison Allen, who I have not seen a book from for a while. So this year I got to read Other Birds, and I loved it. She just does this really soft relationship fiction that I enjoy, and usually there's a touch of magical realism that I also really enjoy. So good. Next, and I can't believe that this was this year, honestly. Like, I feel like this was ages ago, but another of my favorite books this year was Last House on Needless Street. I loved that book. The twists in it, it's a thriller with kind of horrific elements, but there's such emotionality in it, and it's so good. I've read actually, I think, 3 Katrina Ward books, and they were all really good. But I think my favorite, maybe because it was the first one and it just stuck in my brain, but is Last House on Needless Street. It was just very good. Next, I'm sort of cheating because it's a series, but I started reading and loved the Finlay Donovan series, and I would say if you want like fun and funny mystery, then go with Finlay Donovan. It's so good. The first one is Finlay Donovan is Killing It, and it's really good. And the third book is going to be out soon. I have already read it because I had the advanced reader copy, but it's good. Not as good as the first 2, but it's good in a way that it wrapped up a lot of those pieces and leads you in. So keep reading. Next, again, book 2 is coming out this year, so I'm really excited for this one, but it's My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I love his horror, and that one deals with a person who has like this belief in like slasher films and believes that she will be a character in a slasher film, and then all the stuff that goes on. I'm not going to get into it, but it was good. If you like kind of that meta horror, it's good. I'm going back to my Greek retellings, but I loved these books. So it's the Women of Troy duology, starting with The Silence of the Girls. They were both so good that I don't know. I could feel my brain just being consumed by that world and the language, and it was just really, really good. That deals with more of the women dealing with the whole surroundings during the Trojan War, and it was so good. Next on the list is Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, who I've read more of the light con series, and I think there was maybe another one, I don't remember, but before, but the Dead Romantics, yes, there was the fairy tale one that I liked. Anyway, going on, the Dead Romantics is an adult romance book, but the love interest is a ghost. The main character in it, she can see ghosts, and so she starts seeing the ghost of, I think it was her boss. When she travels back to her hometown, suddenly her boss appears like on her door, and nobody else can see him, hence like he's not really there. Anyway, it's very good. There's a lot of emotional drama in there as well, but emotional family drama. Did I say family? Family drama in there as well. It's just really, it's good. I would recommend that one. Sticking to the romance theme, my next 2 choices are romance again, and they are bookish romances. So number 1 is Meet Me in the Margins, which I just sort of stumbled upon, but I thought it was so cute. I loved the romance of it. Just that one. If you like bookish romances, Meet Me in the Margins is really good. And next, probably my favorite romance of the year is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I am an Emily Henry fan, and I think Book Lovers was my favorite thus far. This is not the case for everybody, and it might not be for you. For me, I don't know. I loved the wittiness of it. I liked the whole premise and setup that it was like, she describes herself as the Hallmark movie kind of villainess, like the love interest that gets left behind as the boyfriend goes to like the small town and discovers a girl and, and leaves, and she's the woman that's left behind, that was like career based. And I loved that setup, and it was really good. We're on to my top 5, and this is the only book in my top 5 that I don't have a hard copy of, and I probably should rectify that. I'm surprised I didn't buy it, but it was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. And for me, I like Sally Rooney because it's messy and dramatic, but very real. But Beautiful World, Where Are You is probably the happiest of Sally Rooney's work thus far. And yeah, I love the relationship drama and how Sally Rooney does characters. And I loved that book. And now we're on to my top 4. And coming in at number 4, this is very close between 3 and 4. I would say they're like even, but is Remarkably Bright Creatures. This one I found more towards the end of the year. And look at that beautiful cover. It's gorgeous. This was one of the Read with Jenna choices, which is semi-unfortunate only because they have this on the cover, and I hate that. I really just wish the cover were there. But I don't know how to describe this. There's an octopus, and the octopus is like a character in this and tells part of the story. And it's just amazing. But it also is like one of those interwoven stories where characters end up and storylines end up tying together, that even if you see hints of, you don't fully see the full narrative until the end. But it's emotional and beautiful, and I loved it, and I love the octopus. And just, if you want a good read that is just there for your heart, I loved Remarkably Bright Creatures, and I loved the octopus. So there you go. The author is Shelby Van Pelt. I haven't been saying all the authors, but just look up the title, you'll find them. But all respect to all the authors, even if I don't say your name. And next on the list, and I actually just got the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition because I liked the edges. That's me. I'm all about the edges. But is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis, who I think is also amazing because like this is her first work, and she's an older author who just got in there. And there was actually an interview, I think maybe in the audio book version, which I listened to, that was like asking about that. And for her, it was just, she had a story that she wanted to tell, and age didn't matter. But props for that. But look at these beautiful edges. They match the wording, and I thought it was beautiful. Beautiful sprayed edges. And I liked it. And this is the story of a chemist who, in the first part, falls in love, didn't really want to or expect to. Like there's all these boundaries that were set up, and it's like the breaking of those and the connection and the chemistry with the person that she falls in love with, and then kind of how things just start to be a mess. Everything that was anticipated or expected is blown out of the water, and she has to restart her life, and ends up the host of a baking show on, I think it was just public television, or maybe a small network. How did that work? I don't know, but it's like the 60s, so things were a little different then. But ends up the host of a baking show, of a cooking show, I should say, and brings in how chemistry works and everything into the cooking one, because cooking is a lot of chemistry. But then also how women should be empowered and should make their decisions and get their careers and do everything because they're just as capable as men. So this is a good story. This one has a great dog in it. And this is one of those safe ones where you have a reading challenge where it's like, where an animal's like a character but doesn't die. This is a safe one. So nothing happens to the dog. I mean, stuff happens, but like the dog lives. So Lessons in Chemistry. It's a great book. Now for number 2, I had to, again, sort of take the whole instead of just one part. But it is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And this is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And I loved this book. Like, I fell in love with this book and the stories in there, the emotionality of it. Like, you meet all these little vignettes in the coffee house, and then reasons for wanting to go back and visit someone in the past, which is what you're able to do in this coffee shop, but you have to do it before the coffee gets cold, and you can't leave the seat, and there's all these rules. But you do get to visit somebody that you might needed to have told something to or whatever. You can't change the future. You can't change like what's going to happen to them, to where you are. But it gives you that chance for closure, which I think is really sweet. So all of these like dealt with different issues and relationships. And it's great because sometimes you do wish for that one moment just to get closure. Even if nothing can change about it. Like, you can't say to someone, you know, hey, you have cancer and you're going to die, so go fix it. Like, they can't. Like, it literally won't change anything. But you can have that last conversation and that closure to whatever you need to. And I don't know. I fell in love with this, but I also just have to include the others because it is a trilogy. And they all finished up. So the final one is Before Your Memory Fades. And number 2 is just Tales from the Cafe. This is, the third one was the weakest in my opinion, but it's still really good. This actually takes you to a secondary location cafe. But it's still really good. I was just looking at like the similarities. So the cat is the same. And in these two, the chair pattern is the same. But in this one, which takes place at the other cafe, it's a different chair and pattern. So same cat though. It's like the same image of the cat. Well, this one has a shorter tail. Before Your Memory Fades. This one has a longer tail. Maybe this one, which is at the other cafe, it's like a child of this cat. Because this cat has a long tail that's in both of these. So same location. This one has a shorter tail, but it looks exactly the same. Things I didn't think would get into my head when I'm trying to just go over the top 20 books that I read. The winner, I think, has been on quite a few people's lists. If they got to read it, I think it's not surprising that they chose this book. I would love actually to listen to the audio of this. I read the advanced reader copy for this book because I was so intrigued by it, and I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the story. It made me so sad, but I thought it was beautiful, and I liked a lot of the messaging of it, and it's brilliant, and I have talked about it, and it's Babel. Or what's the full title? An arcane. No, come on. What's the? It's like the rebellion. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna find it because I can't. Here we go. Babel, or the necessity of violence: an arcane history of the Oxford Translators' Revolution. And it's so good. It also made me realize I need to finish the Poppy War because I read the first book, The Poppy War, but I didn't read the other 2 books, and I need to get on that. And actually, by the time I do it, I'm going to need to redo The Poppy War and then read the final 2. But I'm up for that. It's fine. I've just been trying to finish some of the other series, like Wheel of Time before, and then I'll get back into it. This was nice because it was a standalone, so I didn't have to worry about any of that. I think it's interesting, people who get upset about this and about like thinking that the message in here is violence and violent rebellion and acting like that's something new. Like literally I saw a lot of parallels here with the student rebellion movement to Les Mis and the students there trying to rebel and being horribly slaughtered. And I don't want to give away anything, but I think the ending and what happens there actually kind of implies that there are other ways to go about things that might make things progress more than just the sudden act of violent rebellion. That there's more things that you have to consider. I think, and looking historically at things, you often need a combination of both, because sometimes there's an inciting incident of violence, but that doesn't work. Like that will not actually make the total change. That it actually takes more than that, but sometimes that inciting incident can instill the belief in others, like the realization that something isn't right, and then they continue to work harder to achieve what's should be done, if that makes any sense. So I don't know, for me, I got the messaging of this book. I thought it was beautiful and brilliant, and I still think like the way that we treat each other a lot of the times is pretty terrible, and this kind of shows that as well. But there's also chances and abilities for goodness and for love to prevail. So I'm going to keep pushing for that. I'm going to keep pushing for love and kindness and moving forward and finding a path to communicate and move forward together. I'll do what I can do. But anyway, those are my favorite 20 books. 20 plus a couple others, let's be honest. But about my 20 favorite books from 2022. It was a really good reading year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what 2023 will bring, because there's a lot that I'm looking forward to this year as well. That's it for this video. Until next time, bye.